this morning. My name is Melissa Arthur. I am an integrative wellness coach from Illuminate Guidance, and I'm also the host of the Own Your Inner Authority Facebook group, which I'd love for you to join me on there if you're not already in the group. I am so excited to be here with you guys. Thank you so much, Joe, for inviting me. You're so generous with your expertise in your group here. I learned so much from you, and I'm just super excited to share a little bit with you all about what I know about living our life's purpose and stepping outside our comfort zone in a way that feels right to us in order to more fully realize our life's purpose. I know that you guys are mostly tuning in from South Africa, and I have a special place in my heart for your country. I got to spend some time there in the late 90s in Port Elizabeth and a little while in Cape Town too, and just had an amazing experience. And so I'm really happy for that reason too, to get to go and talk with a group internationally. So just a little bit about what I do as an integrative wellness coach. I do a little bit of traditional health coaching in my practice, but the integrative part is the whole lot more. And so I work to support my clients in making changes in their daily activities, their relationships, and their habits to better support their well-being. And so in my practice, the definition of wellness goes well beyond just the absence of disease. And really, I define wellness as a consistent experience of enthusiasm, satisfaction, and joy. So we're raising the bar on wellness here to really step into the life we're meant to live and to enjoy our lives. It's about thriving, not just surviving, and it starts with owning our inner authority so that we can more fully know, love, and trust and be ourselves. And so this topic really just fits right in. I would love for you to ask questions, make comments as we're here live today, and just have this be an opportunity to interact as much as, you know, for me to deliver some of the things that I know to you. So if you're just joining us, say hello in the comments. I'd love to know who's here, and that's the only way we can tell. All right. So that's a little bit about me and where I come from. I am in Kansas, which is in the very middle of the United States. It's 8:30 in the morning here, so we're just starting our day as you guys are kind of winding up your work day. And I think that at this point, if you guys don't have questions to start, we can go ahead and dive in. So many cultures around the world have a construct around living your life's purpose. And I invite you to think about your culture. What does your culture say about purpose, if anything? What did you learn from your family about the importance of purpose, if anything? And how have you aligned with that idea throughout your life? In Japan, the purpose concept is called ikigai, and it translates to reason for being. It's found at the intersection of what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and insofar as your career is concerned, what you can be paid for. Although purpose does not have to relate just to career alone. It can be much broader than that to extend to family, community, anything that has to do with the way that you serve the world. In India's Vedic tradition, there's a concept, and you may have heard this word before, called dharma. And dharma is translated to support. It's the compelling force in each of us that longs to thrive, to become who we are and who we're meant to be. Jo's saying her parents did what they loved, though they never spoke about purpose. So they kind of modeled purpose through their actions, which is really a beautiful thing to do. So from the concept of dharma, our life purpose is hardwired. It's unchanging, and our job here on earth is to basically uncover it. to get to know ourselves in such a way that we begin to understand why we're here and start to align with our purpose. And we do that in different ways throughout our lives. But this process of uncovering our purpose can really be a game changer, because it can take us from, this place of just being in our routines and surviving and meeting our responsibilities and getting things done, to really opening that door to living that life of enthusiasm, satisfaction, and joy that I know we can live. So if you're thinking about life's purpose, most of us, if we were asked, what is your dharma or what is your purpose, we would have a hard time coming up with an answer. And that was true for me for most of my life. This is new work for me, which is why I'm, so excited to share this with you. Aligning with life purpose doesn't always mean your job. Again, it can be any way that you're in service to the world and to your family, to your community, and to the world. And so why would we want to uncover and align with our purpose? My experience is that when I'm living in such a way that's not aligned with my purpose, my life is a lot more challenging. Like, I feel like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill in a lot of ways. And that there's kind of this undercurrent of low-lying stress that may not always be something that's palpable, that I'm totally paying attention to or worried about, but that it's just kind of a drag. And when I am stepping into my purpose, when I am living the life that I know I'm here to live, life feels a lot more like floating down a stream. I'm able to be in my boat, I'm cruising, everything's not always easy, but what I need kind of comes along. And there's a lot more grace and ease in the way that I move through my day and the way that I move through my life. And so what gets in our way? Why doesn't everybody wake up in the morning and say, what's my purpose and how am I going to live it today? I think often we get stuck in a state of surviving, and our lives are busy, and our communities and our families and our jobs are complex, and we implement habits and processes and systems that help us to meet our responsibilities, and we repeat those, and we rarely have a chance to take a breath and reevaluate whether or not those things are serving us, and whether or not the things that we maybe started out believing about our life are still true. And often we're reluctant to make changes because they require us to get outside our comfort zone. So I want to acknowledge all of you who commented on Joe's poll, and all of you who are here today, because just being here and learning about this may be outside of your comfort zone in some ways. When Joe surveyed your group about how you felt about life purpose and about the exploration of that, many of you responded that it felt scary and overwhelming to think about your life in this way. And I could see from some of the comments in your group that some of you are living your purpose and have definitely taken some risks along the way in order to do so. And some of you are clear about your purpose, but feeling some trepidation or some fear around doing something different. And some of you may want to experiment or may feel ready to try something different in order to discover your purpose, but feel some fear around that, or really just aren't really very sure where to start. And it is very natural to feel a little bit of fear and trepidation when going into this work. It's big, And so what I want to share with you today is a construct that has been really helpful for me to better understand what happens within my comfort zone and how I can start to step out of it in a way that feels comfortable and palatable to me. That keeps that fear and overwhelm in a place where, I feel challenged, but I don't feel completely paralyzed by the fear around, making those changes or trying something different. So I'm going to invite you to get out a piece of paper if you have one handy, and something to write with. And if you don't, it's okay. You can watch this on the replay and do this exercise at another time, or just kind of think it through in your head. But I invite you to draw this set of lines. So we've got 2 vertical lines here. There's a little glare here. You see that a little bit better? 2 vertical lines, 2 horizontal lines with arrows on them to start. So this top line represents all the people in the world. And this bottom line represents all the situations in the world. And in between here is you. So I invite you to take just a couple of minutes to think about who you are, and jot down a few words that describe you. What are some words that describe your background and your training, some lessons that you've learned from your parents, your values, your culture, maybe some triggers or things that really, send you into a stressful response, your preferences, some advice and guidance you may have received, or just some of the key things that you have learned just through the process of living your life. So right here, what are the special things that are about you that are really core and really central to who you are? You got it? Okay, so this here, in the context of all the people in the world and all the situations in the world, is what we call your bandwidth. This is representing the unique set of circumstances and situations, combinations of people and things that you are uniquely suited to effectively handle. And so in dealing with all the situations in the world and all the people in the world, you are within your comfort zone, within a narrow band of all the situations and all the possible people and combinations of those that you can handle, right? So you're handling what's going on within your comfort zone with relative ease and skill. And it also represents your default behaviors, or how you typically respond, how you typically are in the world. Are you with me? Is that making sense? Okay. So one way to look at this is that these are your superpowers, right? When you're operating within this range, usually your interventions in the world, your responses in the world, your natural way of being is effective, and it gets you what you want. And if you're fortunate enough to have a job or to be in a relationship where you get to operate in your bandwidth or in your comfort zone and achieve what you want to achieve, you're probably experiencing a relative sense of ease with those things, right? So we want to honor who we are and where we came from and what we've learned, and at the same time recognize that for most of us, at some point in our life, we encounter situations either outside of us or within us that require us to look outside of our comfort zone, right? And that's where the fear comes in. That's where this sense of trepidation comes in, because life is asking us to operate over here, to work with different people and situations and combinations of those in a way that is not our natural way, that is not our default way. And sometimes when we apply our default behaviors or our typical way of being to a new situation, we can actually make it worse or not have the outcome that we want. And so those are the cases where we have to take a step back and say, okay, what is it that I need to do to either step outside of this bandwidth, walk outside of my comfort zone a little bit, or expand it to become more comfortable in more situations and with more people and combinations in the world, right? And for example, you know, I may have chosen my spouse and patterned my marriage relationship to be very much the same pattern as my parents. And in the beginning, this might have felt comfortable to me because it was familiar. But then over time, you know, whether their relationship was healthy or not, I realized that it doesn't work for me, that I have changed and that what I need is different from what maybe is familiar, which is what when I was younger, I gravitated toward. But becoming more mature and realizing I have different needs, I've got to step outside of that pattern in order to have the healthy relationship. That is my relationship with my partner that I most want, if that makes sense. Okay. So a couple of other examples just to help make this clear here. So say one of my values is service. So I got this from my parents. They were really big on serving their community. And I'm feeling like part of exploring my life purpose has to do with service, right? So I want to explore a little bit outside my comfort zone and experiment to see if I can put myself in a different combination of people and situations where I can grow and learn and serve in a new way. So I really love animals. My dogs are sleeping right here. And so say I want to volunteer at an animal shelter. Right? So that's outside of my comfort zone to go up there and apply, and I don't know if I can do this, if it's going to hurt my heart to see these animals, if it's going to be, if I'm going to have time. So immediately, look what happens. I step outside of here and I'm like, but, you know, all of these things could happen, right? But applying to work at an animal shelter is still within the range of what I can tolerate. I feel like I could do that, you know, even though it would be a little stressful, I could do that, right? If I were to go further out and just say, you know, I'm going all in. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to start an animal sanctuary. I don't know how I'm going to support myself or how any of that even works, but I'm just going to do it. Then it's like, big fear, right? So fear lies outside of our comfort zone, and the further we get from here, often the more fear we will experience. And so one of the tricks is to create some experiments that are a little bit more tolerable, a little bit smaller, a little bit more entry level, so that we can dip our toe outside of our comfort zone without becoming paralyzed and feeling like we're going to blow up our whole life and really just make change so quickly that we can't tolerate it, right? Okay, so another example. Another thing that I learned in my family is that if you're a professional and you're good at what you do, you don't need to advertise, right? So there are some values that I received growing up around visibility. Now, I have to ask myself, okay, what I got around service is really serving me. Like, that's definitely still true for me, and I want to explore that in a positive way, right? this was true for my parents in the 80s in a small town before the internet, right? Now, it's not true at all for me and my business. I can't get clients if I'm not visible. And so if you had told me that a year ago that I would be inviting over 2,000 people to do a Facebook Live, you would have sent me in a huge, huge fear spiral, right? That there's no way I'm going to do this. It's impossible. Why would I ever even do that to myself? What do I have to share? I mean, you can just hear that negative self-talk, la, 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 right? So here I am. And how did I get here? I decided I needed to work on my visibility, right? So I started my Facebook group. And I started putting some content in there and gathering data about how it was received. And I started to feel like, you know, people really are listening and they feel like this is useful. And I started making videos that weren't live. And so this got me here. And that was really nerve-wracking at first. And I'd take 10 hours to make a 10-minute video because I had to get it absolutely perfect. And it was ridiculous. But it got me a little further down the track, right? And the further I went, the more I realized that I could do this. And here I am on Facebook Live, a place that a year ago I thought I never, ever could be, right? So just one more quick example. So I grew up with some values around finances. And I was raised with the idea that I would be taken care of financially by a man. And that turned out not to be true for me. And that's okay. But, you know, I find in my relationships when I have struggles around finances that that core value isn't true for me. It's not true for us. We have other values, but that really, I need to, you know, own that that's something that I did once believe, but that's no longer serving me. So I can, again, get a little bit outside my comfort zone. I can do things like get a book on finance for women. You know, that's low risk, right? I can just read this book and start learning, and then maybe I can gear up and go a little further out and make an appointment with my financial planner and really look at reality and make a plan and start to take charge of things. Maybe I can, you know, eventually work up to doing something bigger than that. But that's kind of how the process works, to understand more clearly and be more honest about who we are, to make this list, to go down our list of values, go down our list of experiences and things that we learn, the things that shape who we are and how we respond in the world, and be really radically honest about whether or not those things are serving us. And if they are, to experiment in the positive about how could we make more of those things, right, in service to our purpose. And if they aren't true for us, how can we experiment with a different way of being that will help us to learn and grow at a rate that we can tolerate, keeping that fear at bay. I'm going to pause here just to see if there are any questions. And I really invite you to do this exercise. If you're not doing it right now, make that list in the middle and then just start brainstorming. And you can put things as far out. It doesn't mean you have to do them just because you put them on there, but just start brainstorming. What can I do to dip my toe outside of my comfort zone? So if you do this and you start to realize that you are really not living your purpose and there are a lot of changes that you would like to make in your life, but you don't really know what to do, that is a natural response. It's overall really positive to be in that place of learning, but it can be uncomfortable at first, you know, to start to feel dissatisfied with where you are without a clear sense of where you're going or what to do about it. Have you experienced this ever? Oftentimes when we embark on, you know, major growth, we're in this kind of gray area where we've got the vision, but we just don't have the roadmap for getting there. And so try to remember that you don't have to change everything right away, and that you have this process where you can go incrementally at a rate that works for you. And ultimately, when we experiment outside of our comfort zone, what happens is our comfort zone actually expands. And so just like I was talking about with visibility in Facebook Live, our comfort zone becomes bigger to accommodate our bigger vision eventually. And we're not stuck in this narrow band that maybe we would have been if we hadn't embarked on this process of change. And we want to do these experiments, as I mentioned, in a way that honors our strengths, but also challenges us to experiment with new ways of doing things with the end goal of learning and growing along the way. So not the goal of success or failure necessarily, but if you learned, if you grew, then this process is a success. And to start with the things that feel easy and feel natural, and the changes that you really in your heart feel that you're truly ready to make at first, and then expand out from there. Taking consistent steps in a direction that feels right in your heart, in your mind, and in your gut as well. So take a moment to consider what might be that one first baby step to get you from where you are to where you ultimately want to be. So getting clarity about your desires and truly trusting yourself are the first steps. And I invite you to download my Inner Authority Quick Start Guide. It's designed to help you do just this. And there are a couple of bonus videos that you get with that as well. And they've really been game changers for my clients in terms of changing their life to work toward living closer to their purpose. And most importantly, know that you don't have to do this alone. Find a trusted friend, a family member, a coach, a therapist, a financial planner. I mean, there are many, many resources that can help you along the way, and I invite you to engage them for sure. So at this point, I want to go ahead and open it up for questions and see if anybody has questions. And if you are not watching live, I invite you to ask questions anyway, because I'll see them. I'll keep track of what's going on here and continue to answer them offline as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, Joe says no questions, and you guys are set up with your exercise, and hope that you'll watch this replay and go ahead and take some quiet time to do this for yourself. And thank you again for being here with me this morning. It has been so much fun to share with you, and I hope that you all have a beautiful day or a beautiful evening wherever it is that you're tuning in from.